I'm John Levy, and it's my privilege to serve as the 10th chair of the board of the Legal Services Corporation and welcome you to this special forum on access to justice. And it's really terrific to be back in Ann Arbor. You all have to work hard to keep the rain away for tomorrow. We're so grateful to the University of Michigan for its strong support of LSC, and I'm not just talking about this law school or our grantees here. Tomorrow, for the second time, the vital work of LSC and our grantees will be recognized by the university's athletic department, when LSC's president, Jim Sandman, and 8 of our 11 U.S. Senate confirmed board, our grantees from Indiana and Ann Arbor, joined by Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, because she co-chairs the Congressional Access to Civil Legal Services Caucus, will actually be welcomed onto the field before the Notre Dame game. And actually, some of that board, I don't see Father Pius, but I see 5 of you, and so I want to introduce you. John Malcolm's Vice President of the Heritage Foundation. Matt Keenan was hanging out somewhere over here from Shook, Hardy, and Bacon in Kansas City, and Lori Mikva is an assistant professor of clinical studies at Northwestern Law School, and Robert Gray is president of the Council for Legal Diversity, and he is a former president of the American Bar Association. This whole event was arranged by Coach Jim Harbaugh, a member of LSC's Leaders Council who has spoken at a number of LSC events across the country championing access to justice during the past few years. And just 2 years ago, at an event on Capitol Hill where we released the 2017 Justice Gap Study, Jim took the mic and he said, well, on a football team, folks, it's fairness that we preach. It would be like my saying to my team, well, 20% of you can afford helmets and pads, so you get them. But, well, the rest of you, you can't afford them, so we don't have them for you. Just go out there and see how you do. Well, Jim's a little busy this weekend, but he is certainly well represented here today by his remarkable father, Jack Harbaugh. Jack's right here, and welcome, Jack. Thanks for being with us. Yeah. Well, we gather here today at the end of the ABA's National Celebration of Pro Bono, with more than 1,000 events nationwide this week, encouraging lawyers throughout the country to become more involved in providing pro bono support in their local communities. LSC's own efforts to promote pro bono service is evidenced most recently by our $4.5 million annual Pro Bono Innovation Fund grants program to expand pro bono legal services for low-income clients. And that was just established 5 years ago. But just this past September, LSC made 14 awards, and Michigan Indian Legal Services received a $181,000 grant to increase access to high-quality legal assistance for Native populations residing throughout this state. And the goal of this initiative is to recruit late career, retired attorneys to offer community legal education on critical topics, providing direct representation to individuals, and mentor Michigan Indian Legal Services junior staff attorneys to help build Mill's capacity to serve clients. And 2 weeks ago, LSC made its 2019 Technology Initiative grants to 30 legal services organizations. This program, which is a magnificent program, funds technology programs providing greater access to high-quality legal assistance and information for low-income folks across the country. And during its 20 years, this program has made grants of over $65 million to fund more than 720 projects across the country. Our host today at lunch, following this forum, Michigan Advocacy Program, actually received 2 such grants this year. The first, for $115,000, enhances Michigan Advocacy's program to engage in simple automated text conversations with users of Michigan Legal Help, an online resource for people with civil legal problems. This project will include text conversations focused on follow-up assistance and tracking user outcomes. The second grant for $177,000 will allow them to improve online guided client interviews and other key client-facing applications. During the past few months, LSC has also released the reports of two very important task forces, one dealing with natural disasters and civil legal aid, and the other with the tragic opioid use disorder crisis. Well, you may be wondering how civil legal aid relates to these two areas of national concern, but in fact, putting emergency managers and legal aid providers together has already helped outline better approaches for coordinating and preparing communities, particularly those that have repeat occurrences, to better assist low-income individuals recovering from disasters. Low-income residents are frequently the most impacted in their communities and victims of scams, unlawful evictions. They need to replace their identification papers, and they need help in filing their claims. With the opioid crisis, there are issues ranging from guardianship, accessing appropriate health care and treatment, to regaining employment. And as the people of Michigan well know, the opioid crisis has and continues to hit hard. It's a time when legal and medical communities, social service organizations, even the law enforcement communities need to better collaborate to manage the effects of this crisis on our country's low-income population. And then just a few weeks from now, on November 11th, the nation will observe the 100th anniversary of Veterans Day. And LSC will convene its second ever Veterans Day Summit in New York City, highlighting the significance of civil legal aid to so many who have served our country and now need our help in accessing their benefits or navigating the civil justice system on behalf of themselves and their families. Despite efforts such as these, the vital work done by our grantees here in Michigan and across the country, we still have such a long way to go to provide access to justice for all, because today, nearly 59 million Americans qualify for LSC-funded civil legal assistance, living at 125% of the federal poverty guideline or below. And our Justice Gap study, the one that Jim helped release in 2017, found that an estimated 1 million civil legal problems brought to LSC's grantees by low-income Americans did not receive the assistance required to fully address their needs because of lack of resources. So earlier this year, LSC conducted a new intake study from its 132 grantees, and it suggests that the level of unmet need continues almost unabated. The 2019 intake census focused on eligible clients who actually knew they had a civil legal problem and came to our grantees during a 4-week period this past spring. And it found that 42% of the legal problems, 42% received no service whatsoever, and only 27% were fully served. This is because of a lack of resources. So based on national statistics, if the big house were filled to capacity with client-eligible individuals, there would be only 11 legal aid lawyers available to serve their civil legal needs. 11. Simply put, our grantees need more money to address the crisis in civil legal aid. And although Congress actually increased our funding for 2019 to $415 million, that figure is still below the $420 million that was awarded in 2010. And it's less than half of what in today's dollars would be the $880 million appropriated just 4 years after LSC's founding in the 1970s, when only 12% of the then smaller U.S. population qualified for LSC-funded assistance. Well, as we meet today, we know that the House of Representatives have voted to increase our budget to $550 million, but the Senate is at $425 million. So much will depend on what happens in the conference between the House and Senate. But whatever number they ultimately settle on, it will be less than LSC's fiscal year 2020 budget request for $593 million, and in inflation-adjusted dollars, less than it was in many of the years of the Reagan administration. And it's this time of year, so I can make this analogy, it will be less than what Americans spend on Halloween costumes for their pets. We are far away from realizing the founders' promise of equal access to justice. Thomas Jefferson said, "The most sacred of the duties of a government is to do equal and impartial justice to all its citizens." Does that sound to you like what we're doing? Access to justice should not be a privilege of wealth, but a right of its citizens. As Jim Harbaugh put it, the legal system is one of the pillars of our freedom that we have in our country. It should be like the postal system. Everyone should have access. There's a post office in every town, no matter where it is, how big or how small. Well, our LSC board, like the ones that have preceded it, will do all it can to support and strengthen this pillar of freedom and democracy. And thank you very much.